And welcome back, everybody, to another episode of Bubba the Bloom, episode 84. Continuing our positional recaps, outfield review, part one, top 30 in the ADP department, and much, much more. Yes, this is Thursday night where you're used to hearing from us. This is take two on the week. You can find me on Twitter at BDintric, the podcast at Bubba Bloom Pod, and my co-host, as always, on Twitter at RyanBHQ. Ryan Bloomfield, how are we doing, my friend?
I'm great. I have in my digital fingertips right here, I have a final copy, a final proof, a final draft,
Ooh,
cover to cover of the Baseball Forecaster. So
that's beautiful.
we're almost there. I'm going to do one more pass through this evening after the show, and then Forecaster's off to the printer on Friday and into hands on, I believe, on Wednesday in time for Turkey Day. So yeah, man, that's like taken over my life along with kind of our FPAS 4A over the last month, and it will be good to have it in the rear view.
Heck yeah, that's awesome. It's going to be great. Everyone's clamoring for it. There's a lot of chatter on the Twitter for it already, and it's going to be fun to have that PDF right around day before Thanksgiving, you're saying, possibly?
Yep.
So,
as is tradition, day before Thanksgiving, we release it out. The PDF, at least, the hard copy will ship in December, which we will also, so we did this last year, I guess, a side programming note. I'm going to put out a call to a few forecaster writers. I know we had a few last year, not just for player boxes. We had Corbin Young, Jock Thompson on player boxes, but we also had some of the essay guys. Dan Marcus was on, Kerry James. So we'd like to kind of give those folks some exposure on the show as well. So look for that. Hopefully in December, if we can get everything worked out. Timing's always, I mean, scheduling guests like on the West Coast and East Coast, that's always tough, but we'll figure it out.
Yep, it's going to be awesome. And for those that love catchers, I have to have my catchers submitted by December 1st. So the grind is kicking up in a big way.
December 1st?
Yeah, they're all due December 1st. So
have you crossed out enough names on your notepad to?
Oh no, we're doing 49.
Get to a final. Oh, you're doing 49.
I crossed out to get to 49.
You don't want to write a 50th.
No, I don't think. We'll see. Maybe I'll get extra excited and write an AL NL only guy at number 50 and see. Maybe Martin Maldonado, since he's a free agent. We'll write about Martin, who I hate so much.
Mike Zunino, or is he already on the 49?
No, he's not on the list. That's a good one. Omar Narvaez, we talked about him. He did not make the list. Joey Bart didn't make the list, I don't think. Maybe I could throw him on there as a guy that's crashed and burned so many times as he backs up catching in San Francisco.
Look at this guy. Listeners, this is the outfield review part one, and Bubba's just straight to like Joey Bart and Omar Narvaez.
Hey,
I cannot help you.
No, that's what I'm here for, people. But we'll get to that at a later date and time, and don't you worry. The preview podcast for catchers will be extraordinary. I will have everything you don't. I
won't even show up to the. I won't even show up to the damn thing. I'll just let you go solo.
This will be my 1 hour PowerPoint presentation on catchers that Bloom will show up for at the end.
I'll just click the button to move the slides.
Exactly, it'll be a lot of fun for sure. So as usual, we go through. We're do 2 episodes for outfielders. Do top 30 ADP tonight, 31 through 60 next week, plus late round guys at the outfield next week on Tuesday, I believe. And but so since we have a little bit of a window before we talk about this other chart that Bloomfield made, I just wanted to have some fun here for a second. MVPs got announced on Thursday night. Shohei Acuna went deep in on Thursday night as well because he's playing in I believe the Dominican, if I could be mistaken, somewhere in Latin America,
League, I believe.
Venezuelan league. There's all of them are going on right now. So Venezuela would make sense. He's from Venezuela, so yes, that would make a lot of sense. But he goes deep. We had the Cy Youngs. We had Snell and Cole win the Cy Young. Rookie of the Years were standard. We talked about those briefly on Tuesday. Any takes on awards? I think we all kind of knew what they were going to be before they even happened, type thing. I guess the managers were the only ones kind of up in the air, and really, who cares?
Really don't care who wins manager of the year. Not really any. I mean, it was kind of anticlimactic. I think I knew Garrett Cole had never won a Cy Young before, which is still kind of shocking when you look back at Cole's career that this was his first. So that was good for him. The other interesting one was your boy, Logan Webb, finishing second in the NL. That was impressive.
Yeah, Webb's one of those, like, we take our L's on this show. Obviously, you see us do this in the camera very often. But victory laps are good as long as you take your L's. I'm a fan of that. Webb is a guy I went to battle for last year in fantasy because people said he doesn't strike anybody out. He doesn't do this for that. And I'm like, the dude's an amazing pitcher. And throughout his career, like we talked about, like he's shown he can strike out guys when he wants to. He changes his pitch mix up. He gets ground balls. He limits hard contact. He's like a Framber Valdez type guy, but everybody poo-pooed him throughout the offseason. And he was amazing. He had over 200 innings pitched, only like 4, 5, 6 guys I think that did it all season. He was just electric. The ratios are great. Strikeouts weren't bad because he had the volume. It's like he's like a Sandy Alcantara season kind of thing that worked out really, really well. Can it be duplicated? Who knows? But the fact that he gets second place, I thought was just kudos to him. The writers kind of said, hey, he was really darn good, like really, really good. And a Giants team that shouldn't even have been in the playoff discussion was at least in it until early September, and he's the pretty much only reason why. That says a lot. That's what an MVP, a Cy Young, is all about, and he was that dude. The one thing I want to mention to you, or I had two things. We'll start with this one. How crazy is it to see Spencer Strider finished 4th in the Cy Young after?
I know.
Talk about the second half fall that just like crippled his Cy Young.
And even the September fall of Justin Steele, who finished 5th.
Yeah, true.
Who the hell finished 3rd? Gallen?
It was Gallen. Yeah, Zach Gallen.
Yeah,
volume.
That was
volume.
So the interesting thing, Bub, about Logan Webb, just as I pull up his page, he actually had the worst ERA of each of his last 3 seasons this year at 3.25. He had a losing record.
Yeah, well, that doesn't surprise me. Tim Lincecum won a Cy Young with like 12 wins one year.
Yeah,
the Giants don't win
like
games.
that too. But just kind of cool that Logan Webb still finished second despite that. But yeah, dude, Logan Webb, like ERA the last 3 seasons, 303, 290, 325. Good Lord. I mean, a 60% ground ball rate will definitely do that. Yep. Definitely, I don't know. One of the more impressive runs the last few years that I hate the word nobody talks about, but just seems like flies under the radar, as you were kind of alluding to.
Yep, he flies under the radar in a big, big way, which in early ADPs, I don't have it up for pitchers right now, that outfielder up. He is getting a little more love this year. I'll say that much compared to years past, but I still think he's a pretty good. He could be an SP2 on a lot of teams, which will be probably a good place to be. The other thing I want to mention about the Cy Youngs real quick before we move on to our normal scheduled programming. Did you realize, because I did not, but this was tweeted out, so hopefully it's real and I'm not a complete fool right now. Nolan Ryan did not win a Cy Young.
Did not know that.
Neither did I.
Did not know that.
And that was tweeted out by multiple accounts, so that's why I'm thinking it's real. I guess I go to Baseball Reference and check it out because it'll be right there. But
somewhere there's a Carissa Thompson joke floating around here. You check her feed. No, I did not realize that. That's pretty wild. Strikeout leader all time to not get a Cy Young.
The bulldog of bulldogs that you just expect to be that dude. He did not get it, which is nuts to me. That Nolan Ryan, you'd expect, he's like goes down in history as one of the best pitchers ever, and somehow he has no awards, no Cy Youngs. Let me scroll down to the bottom of a BREF here.
Which is kind of nuts. He had, so in 1981, he had 150 innings of a 169 ERA, finished 4th in the Cy Young.
Yeah,
dude,
oh my God. He only had only one second place vote this season.
In 1972, my man had a 228 ERA, 284 innings, and finished 8th in the Cy Young.
The dude only had 8 All-Star games.
Out of like 45 years in MLB.
Yeah, what in the world? He had this is just nuts. Yeah, that's one of those that I don't want to spend all night going through this, but like who else won the awards and stuff like that those years? Because it's pretty crazy. He's just a hoss and got the job done. But all right, I think we've done enough awards talk. That'll hopefully people are still listening to the show. Let's pull up the first board, which is fun because we kind of talked about it position by position and was really highlighted at third base that there's like no steals outside of a couple of guys. So like when we talk about preview stuff, we do the top picks 1 to 150, 150 to 200, so on and so forth. We talk positions, we talk stats to target in those ranges and whatnot. So Ryan put together a quick board here about position by position, like what stats are you expecting at the position. So Ryan, the floor is yours. How do you kind of assess what we looked at? This is obviously from 2023, everybody. These are the results we were looking at.
Yeah, I'll tweet this out sometime on Friday probably. But actually, one of the listener questions, which we'll get to at the end of the show, kind of tipped me down this rabbit hole. This question was something related to like outfield scarcity. So I was like, I don't know. Let me just run the numbers from last season among the top 300 ADP. So the top 300 hitters drafted. I just took the 5 categories: average, runs, homers, RBI, stolen bases, and set them over 600 plate appearances and grouped them by position, just to kind of see like which positions had the most power, fewest steals, and it kind of shook out as normal, or as you would expect. In terms of steals, we've talked steals quite a bit during each of these position reviews. Shortstop on average in the top 300 ADP in 2023. You had 20 steals over a full season, 600 plate appearances. Second base, you had 16. Outfield, you had 15. It dropped like crazy after that. You had third base with 10, which, as we talked about on last week's show, was basically like Bobby Witt, Jose Ramirez, and Ha-Seong Kim themselves holding that up. And then first base and catcher both had 4. So there were really like no steals at catcher, first base. Interesting to me to see the runs and RBI split. Middle infield positions had by far the most runs, or not by far, but they had a few more runs, 81 runs over a full season compared to 72 and 69 RBI. Whereas like first base, 75 runs, 82 RBI. So again, like this is just a macro level. Like I wouldn't take too much away from this, but just interesting to see where the power came from, where the steals came from, and a little bit of difference in batting average. Your middle infielders, again, 264 at second base, 262 batting average at shortstop. Third base and outfield were down to 256. So your batting average and stolen bases came from your middle infield. Your power and I guess RBI came from first and third base. Outfield was kind of all over the place, and catcher was, sorry to burst your bubble, Bubba. Catcher, there's a lot of red up there, 247 on average, which is actually, which is interesting to know. Among the top 300 players drafted last year, your average catcher hit 247. That's actually
not bad.
It's actually a little bit higher than like I thought, and hit 21 home runs.
I was at the power too. The power, even the runs and RBIs for a catcher, not bad.
Yeah, like I love how we're tilting this back toward the catcher position.
But where I was going to tilt this is actually great for me because I pride myself on depth at the position. So after pick 300, this is why you can wait on catcher and fill up your other statistical categories.
Yeah,
there's my promo. There's my promo for catcher right there.
Yeah, this guy.
Yep.
So not worth deep diving or anything like that. But I just thought it was an interesting visual to see the spread of categories by position in 2023.
Yeah, for sure. No, I like that quite a bit. It's interesting. It'll be fun to see when we talk outfield here to see if our feelings match the board, because third base, there's no steals. Like the steals make sense, but we thought runs and RBIs, well, kind of, if you look at the rest of them, it was, not that far off. So it's
honestly, like I was a little bit off because in a clip we ran on social media, I was talking about stolen bases, like being not there for third base. Still on average, more than twice the number of first base. So a couple reasons for that. I mentioned the Witt, Kim, and Ramirez triumvirate. But at first base, I think there was only one 20 stolen base guy, and there were a lot of just straight zeros. Where third base, you had 4 bags here. It added up to actually be quite a bit more stolen bases at third base compared to first than I thought, at least. So
for sure. No, it's very interesting to see. It's always the macro level approach. It gets you ready to dive in and maybe look a little deeper at certain spots and see where it all plays out. So speaking of diving deeper into spots, let's talk about the top 30 outfielders ADP wise. And honestly, I'm not going to go too deep on some of these guys. I think they speak for themselves, but we'll still highlight them because that's what we're here to do. We'll start with the top guy. The MVP of the National League, Ronald Acuna Jr., first ADP, first in the ranks, probably first overall in the ranks, not just in outfield. Just going to throw it out there.
Yeah,
just going to throw it out there. 337 average, 41 bombs, 73 stolen bases. If you go to rotoware.com, there's a 40-70 shirt out there, which is insane just to think about someday. I don't have a ton here. The dude's a beast. He's healthy. We've said for years, if healthy, this guy's probably one of the best players in baseball. Not sure we expected to this magnitude, but it was just a cheat code this past season.
Yep. Just a hat tip to what we saw. I don't know if we appreciate how historic this season was of Ronald Acuna Jr. Another quick forecaster plug. Ron Chandler's intro that he writes every year. It's one of my favorite pieces right at the beginning of the forecaster. He leads right off with Ronald Acuna and the historical context that we saw. I'm not gonna give it away, but just some very interesting numbers that Ron ran on Acuna's 2023 and where that rates historically in the history of our game. It's pretty fascinating what he did.
And just for a peekaboo to 2024, there's been 15 draft champion drafts. He's gone first in all 15 of them.
I mean,
so it feels like for those like that play fantasy football back in the day, this was LaDainian Tomlinson. Like if you had the first pick and you drafted him, you pretty much won. That's kind of how it worked.
This is like what led to third round reversal in fantasy football.
Yep, this is it right here. So if he can duplicate it again, we'll probably get discussions for that down the road. I wouldn't be shocked about that kind of scenario. Aaron Judge. Now, this is a fun one because, second outfielder off the board, finished 19th at the position, hit 267, 37 homers, 3 stolen bases. It came down to injuries. This is a thing with Aaron Judge. I remember writing an article, I think back in maybe 2019 or so, that, you look at the skill set of Aaron Judge. He's an elite hitter. There's never a doubt in that. It's just stay healthy because he couldn't do it. In 2021, he played 148 games, 39 bombs. His MVP year in 2022, 62 bombs, 16 steals, hit 311. Gets hurt again in 2023. So what are you taking away from this? Because the skills still pretty dang good, but it just always concerns me, guys of this size, that it's an injury away type thing.
Yeah, I guess. I still, so you mentioned the numbers for Judge the last couple of years. Like he was not injured at all in 21 and 22. And even the injury in 23, it's when he crashed into that Dodger Stadium fence, basically, and messed up his toe. Like that's a fluky thing. I don't even know if I'd call Aaron Judge injury prone.
I didn't say those words.
At
Don't
all.
put those words
No, you didn't. You didn't. I don't hold the injury against him next year. Like I think Aaron Judge has just as good of a chance of going over 600 plate appearances as any one of your quote unquote safer outfielders in 2024. The one thing that I was a little bit surprised with was the lack of steals.
Yeah, could be the total.
Only 3 steals, and I don't think we can blame the injury on that. Like he just did not run. The stolen base opportunities spiked in 22, and it went right back to where it's been before that.
Maybe he couldn't run because of the toe.
Could be. When did he hurt the toe? It was
early in the
middle of the season. No, it was early June.
Yep.
Early June. So that could definitely explain it. He did have all 3 steals in April and May and never had one after that. So it's a good call.
And people in DCs are trusting him. He's got an ADP of 3 right now. He's got between 2 and 7. So
does he really? He has an ADP of 3. Okay.
Yeah. He's gone over between pick 2 and pick 7. I don't think our ADPs are in there, obviously, because you took him 15th or 16th?
I got him 15th with Trey Turner.
Yep. Yeah. So in the other 15 DCs, he's gone anywhere between 2 and 7. So people are trusting are kind of going with the talk about it was his toe. If he's healthy, we might get the real deal Holyfield again, which is we talk about power outages left and right. Like healthy, the dude's 50 plus. Like this is a pretty confident thing that I would feel confident in at least. So we'll see how that plays out. Now the fun one of them, we're talking top 30 outfielders, and most of these are going to be pretty fun, honestly. But J-Rod, Julio Rodriguez, for like the last 2-ish months of the season or so, was every highlight reel you could see outside of Ronald Acuna. It was just amazing watching J-Rod. He was a third outfielder off the board, finished 4th overall, 275, 32, and 37. I kind of hinted at it the second half, just tremendous. But what I love about it, it's coming off a 28-25 season the year before when he played in 23 fewer games. So we just saw a guy who turned 22, will be 23 in December. Like this is amazing stuff from J-Rod. So again, I don't have a lot to add on these guys, but what do you have on J-Rod?
Nothing on him specifically. It's just Another example of this is a long season. J-Rod was pretty disappointing in the first half. And then, Bubba, you mentioned the tear that he went on and ended up just fine, and should be a top 5 pick next year. So,
and now my boy.
Here we go.
Kyle Tucker, everybody. 4th outfielder off the board, finished 5th overall.
I'll be back in 5 minutes again.
284, 29 homers, 30 steals, almost went 30-30. The dude's got the skill set to be great. He had a manager that prevented him from being as great as he could be. That manager is no longer there. But I'm still a massive believer. This is a 30-30 guy, which he's pretty much kind of done 2 years in a row, close to it at least. But he just provides you everything you can want all across the board, in my opinion. I'd still take these other guys ahead of him who we talked about. He's the 6th outfielder off the board in DCs right now. But what's your thoughts on what Kyle Tucker did in 2023? It's another, and with him, it's like you have these Acunas and these J-Rods, and Tucker's just quietly doing it. Just kind of quietly doing his thing, and just next thing you know, here's his stat line, which you kind of look at the beginning of the season, you're like, yeah, that checks out. That's who he is. So what's your thoughts on Tucker?
I mean, you have to assume Acuna is, the odds-on favorite to be the number 1 player in 2024. I'd still take the feel I doubt Acuna will finish first again. Like, that's a very rare thing. I think outside of Acuna, Kyle Tucker, I have no qualms about him even being the 2nd overall pick. You mentioned Dusty Baker leaving. That's probably a good thing for Kyle Tucker in terms of batting order. Like, that's the one kind of downside that he had, was he's hitting 5th or 6th in that lineup. If he can get up to 2nd, that's only going to help. We just need more plate appearances of what he does. And so, I feel like this is one of the safest floors, most well-rounded skill sets in baseball. Not surprised at all. We were both huge on Kyle Tucker entering the season. I remember in labor, I had the 4th pick, and I was going to take Kyle Tucker, and Tim McLeod took him 2nd, and we just lost it. I remember that on the live stream. But I think outside of Acuna, I can't see a case against taking Kyle Tucker 2nd. There's obviously other great options, but Tucker's a freaking beast.
Yeah, and you nailed the biggest thing for me is, some guys like to go for the flashy play. Some guys I want the overall play, stuff like that. Tucker, barring an injury, is as safe as they come. It's just you could look at the projections and he almost spits it out at the end of the year. And there's just something relaxing about that with your first pick, because there's so much volatility in drafts. We'll highlight top 2 rounds or whatever, and see how many. You mentioned it earlier, actually, in review stuff, that how many guys actually fail to meet their value. Tucker just consistently is right there. He's just doing his thing, doesn't kill your team, gives you a solid base, 5 categories. It's a beautiful thing that Kyle Tucker brings to the table, and did it again in 2023. And I'd have to go back and look deeper, but I remember there were times he was battling a little bit of an injury. I don't think he went on the IL, but he was day to day. He'd play a little, take a couple of days off, play a little couple of days off. I guess a wrist or an ankle or something. And he still put up great numbers. So I just love to see it with Kyle Tucker. Hopefully it continues on in 2024. Mookie Betts, 5th outfielder out the board, finished 2nd at the position. And we talked about him at second base. The dude just had an amazing season, hitting 307, 39 bombs, 14 steals, did a little bit of everything, 126 runs, just nuts stuff that Mookie Betts did. I find it hard. And hey, this is me. This is me, L, on this one. I did not think he was worth this ADP. Proved me insanely wrong. So we'll see how it goes coming up here. But heck of a season from Mookie. I can admit when I'm wrong, and this one I was very wrong on.
I think so. We talked about Bobby Witt last week. I think each of our first round, if you have to pick someone to not do first round, I was Witt, and you were Betts. So good for us.
Both did very well.
Yeah. Nothing to add. I would venture to say he led the league. Betts did in runs plus RBI with 126 runs, like you mentioned, 107 RBI. It's just freaking bonkers.
Yeah, 233 combined. That is nuts. Juan Soto, he was the 6th outfielder off the board, finished 6th of the position, which to me, right there, before we get into the stats, everyone was many were clowning his season. So that wasn't great. Kind of like the Bregman thing. Here he is, 6th of the position, 275, 35 homers, 12 stolen bases, 109 RBIs, 97 runs scored. That's a very productive season for Soto, and especially when on paper it feels like he didn't live up to his overall production level when you really look at things. So all in all, a really, really strong season. And man, if he goes to Yankee Stadium, watch out. But what's your thoughts on Soto's 2023?
Just an example of having a bad April can skew that perception of how a player does throughout the season. When everyone's hyper focused on April and numbers and overreacting, Juan Soto hit 217 with 5 homers and 1 steal in April. In September, the dude hit 340 with 10 home runs and 6 steals. Imagine what the narrative would have been on Juan Soto if you just flipped April and September. He had his September and April, and then he had his April and September, if I did that right.
Yeah, I got you.
It's just an example of like when you hit your hot streaks. Juan Soto was just destroying everything while everyone was focusing on their fantasy football team. And for him to finish 6th after the start that he had is super, super impressive. I was worried about the stolen bases entering the season. I think we both were. I don't think Juan Soto, he did not attempt a steal in San Diego in 2022, but he proved me at least wrong there with 12 steals. And just a great kind of under the radar season who probably won some championships or helped win some championships in September. Last piece I'll throw out here. So Juan Soto finished 6th and was the 6th ADP. Yet again, another week, another position of the top 6, top 5, whatever at each position for hitters, returning full value. The only bust here was Aaron Judge at 19. And I would argue, I don't know if that was even a huge bust because you've got replacement level time and that sort of thing. But everyone else in the top 6 finished with top 6 value, which again is really hard to do. The market totally nailed these early round hitters.
Yeah, Soto's got like an ADP of around 16.5. He's got as high as 9, as low as 34. I want to clarify earlier, I gave you J-Rod's ADP, not Judge. Judge's ADP is 12. Our draft is in here. He's gone anywhere from 5 to 20. So you're right in the middle there, kind of.
Okay, that makes a little more sense.
Yeah, that makes more sense. Like I was just totally being an idiot when I was reading that. But but Soto, you can get him, on the turn in the 15, middle of the round, second round of 12. That feels pretty good, honestly. Like people kind of get bummed with Soto because they don't think he steals enough bags, and he's got it in him. We've seen it. It's just a matter of, I think, the situation he's in potentially. But if you go get like a Bobby Witt in round 1 and somehow, and maybe you get Witt in the middle of round 1 or something. I don't know. I'm just throwing things at the wall, and somehow Soto comes back in round 2 and a 12. That's beautiful. Absolutely beautiful.
He had 5 steals in May. He had no steals from June through August, and then those 6 in September. It's like the steals, I don't know what the hell to project for next year, but at least he ran at the end of the year, which is a good sign.
Well, he was healthy because he was battling a back injury in the middle of the season or something.
He had something,
yeah. So he got healthy, got things going on. So lots of goods there. Yordan Alvarez, 7th off the board, finished 18th overall, 293, 31 homers, 0 steals as expected. It was just another injury thing with Yordan. He's had injuries every year, but you usually get a little more than 114 games. When he was on the field, still an elite, scary, just nasty hitter. We saw it in the postseason, just destroying baseballs. Just a matter of staying on the field. And it's like he's one that I feel like you can already count on an IL stint or 2, just because the knees, the backs, it's a bad situation with Yordan. But man, the payoff is beautiful.
It's like the oldest 26-year-old of mankind.
It's the Greg Oden of baseball.
That's good. Did you come up with that just now?
You're welcome. That's what I'm here for.
I didn't realize 18th was the finish for Yordan Alvarez.
Still kind of good considering how much time you missed.
Yeah, I think the reason I was off of Alvarez in draft season was with this stolen base environment. To get 0 steals is tough. It's tough. And in solo leagues, you could punt steals, and there's actually a pretty viable strategy to do that with some of these guys that just don't steal bases. But I think like Alvarez, unless he has a Matt Olson type season in terms of like skills, which he has, and playing time, which he hasn't really shown yet, unless he has that type of season, it's going to be hard for Alvarez to really return first round value, to be honest. So,
I like the idea of Alvarez last year because, the whole power discussion, and he still hit, 31 homers in 113 games. And, the replacement value, you could try to tack things on, so maybe hit 40 home runs at that position or something. But, yeah, the steals and all that other stuff kind of takes a hit. And honestly, the replacement value probably ruins his batting average. So that's a tough blow as well. Because, like, more often than not, when you replace a guy, the guy's probably hitting 260, 270. So you could almost find something in the wheelhouse there where 293, 300 average is tough to find anywhere. So
yeah, I mean, even lower than that, going back to the graphic I showed earlier, the average outfield batting average was 256, and that's a top 300 ADP. So you're probably replacing him with a 240, 245 guy.
So it crushes that too. So we always like to talk about, okay, you play this guy for X amount of games and the replacement value. His replacement value is a bit different. That's all I'm going to say. It's a much different hit than most other positions. Fernando Tatis Jr., 8th outfielder off the board, finished 14th, 257, 25 homers, 29 stolen bases. We talked about him earlier a few episodes ago. Missed a week or two to start the year or something like that, and still finished pretty good. You said you were pleased with what he did overall.
Absolutely. And especially like with the questions of the shoulder and PEDs and what the performance would look like. I think he answered those. But yeah, we touched on him a couple weeks ago, so we won't rehash. But I think a bona fide first round pick in Fernando.
ADP of 7 right now.
I believe he's outfield only, right?
Yes, he is. I was just looking at that with his ADP. Outfield only, ADP of 7. Out of like the top 13 outfielders off the board, Mookie Betts is the only multi-position guy for 2024.
Yeah, good pull. Huh.
Yeah. If you want to go deeper, Cody Bellinger's the 14th outfielder. He's got eligibility. And then you have to go down to pick 23 to get another guy at Spencer Steer. So in the top 25, there's only 3 people with multi-position eligibility in the outfield, which usually you get a lot deeper. You usually get a lot more of that, multi-position stuff. So because, Jazz won't have it and some other guys. So keep all of that in mind. It's a different landscape in 2024. But we're talking 2023. Just to Mike Trout. 9th off the board, finished 83rd, hit 263 with 18 homers, 2 steals, and only played in 82 games. It's a shame what's been going on lately, Ryan, and I don't want to say anything negative about one of the best baseball players we've ever seen on the face of the planet, but I don't know if we're ever going to see that guy again. Let's put it that way.
Yeah, man. It's tough.
If you just look at the last 4 or 5 years, it's not promising.
Agreed. I mean, injuries have just destroyed this guy. I think the skills are the power dropped off quite a bit actually in 2023. So maybe I stopped myself in saying the skills are still there as I talk into this more and more. I think
do you know who took him at pick 76 in our early DC by chance?
That would be yours truly. That would be yours truly, and with hesitation.
Yes,
was it 76?
Yeah.
Is that what you said?
Yep.
What's his ADP now?
Right now his ADP 77.
No discount.
He's gone as high as 38 and as low as 149.
Yeah.
He's all over
hasn't stolen more than 2 bases since 2019. Don't even know what team he'll be playing on, which honestly a change of scenery would do Trout pretty good. I think that lineup's going to be terrible without Shohei Ohtani. I mean, they do have leadoff legend Luis Rengifo still going, but outside of that, there's not much in that Angels lineup. So yeah, man, it's a weird world to see a Mike Trout in the 70s in ADP, but it certainly warrants it given the lack of volume, lack of steals, and recently downward trending power.
Yeah. We'll see. Like, I would love nothing more than to see him turn into Mike Trout again. I'm going to watch from afar. Let's put it that way. It's kind of a shame to see him. The 29th outfielder, or the 10th outfielder off the board at an ADP of 29, finished 29th at the position. That's Michael Harris II. Hit 293, 18 homers, 20 steals. Nearly had the same stat line he had in 2022, except he played in 24 more games. He started out horrifically to start the season. Another kind of Juan Soto discussion, you could say, where everyone thought it was so bad. He actually finished really strong to get to those numbers, all things considered. He's always at the bottom of the order, which is a bummer, and loaded order, though, which is a plus. So pick your poison. But his ADP was too high for me last year, and it wasn't even anything against him. He still had a good year, but what's your thoughts on Michael Harris, who 29th outfielder overall?
Yeah, just another example of the Soto thing. So that's a great call of just that perception. Harris was awful through
People
May.
are dropping him.
Yeah, I mean, he had 2 home runs, 5 steals, and a sub 200 batting average through the first 2 months of the season. Like that's tough. The 9th in the order, that's not going away. The Braves, like as we talked about last week, have their lineup locked through 2070. The production against lefties improved, which I don't like to look at too much in terms of like lefty-righty splits in a single year. There's a lot of noise to that, but it should at the very least, solidify playing time for Michael Harris as an everyday player next year. The defense also solidifies that as well. So, yeah, you don't like 9th, but Atlanta's so good that Harris hitting 9th is like hitting 5th or 6th on a quote unquote normal team that doesn't turn the lineup over as often. So Harris, I think, is a fine early round building block next year, especially the way he finished.
Yeah, that's kind of ADP around 40. So in a 15,
middle
of
I'd
round
be
3
in there for sure.
Yeah, that's not too bad. Especially if you go early pitcher, gives you a nice guy with 20/20 upside in the middle. One of my boys,
another one of your boys here.
Yep, Randy Arozarena, 11th outfielder, finished 17th. Honestly, he should have finished higher, but his finish of the season wasn't great. Kind of fell apart towards the end there. Hit 254, 23 homers, 22 steals, 95 runs scored. I still love the guy. I drafted him because I always think it's a 20/20 guy I can just pencil in. He's done that for 3 straight years. Wouldn't be shocked if he does it again. He's only 28. So I love Randy. It'd be nice if we put together a full season. That'd be great. But he hasn't quite put that all together yet. But what's your thoughts on Randy?
No, you covered it well. 600 plate appearances each of the last 3 seasons. Like, definitely seems like you can pencil in 2020, and had a career low BABIP this year with a lot more fly balls. So that's why that happened. And it only resulted in 3 more home runs. So I'd like to see Randy kind of go back to more of the ground ball hitter, get that batting average up, and give him the ability to steal more bags, but not too worried about the late season slide. I mean, hell, he hit 280 in August with 8 steals, 4 homers. Like, the slide was just in September, and we all have bad months in baseball and in life.
Yep.
So
no doubt about that. But Randy's one I will still go to bat for any day of the week.
Absolutely. Yep.
At that ADP of 42, I take him over Michael Harris personally, but that's just me. So it's close. It's closer than it should be.
That's a good one. I think I'd go Harris, but I don't know. I don't feel like Harris would have a higher ceiling.
Yeah, and better batting average, but better batting average for sure. Like, he will definitely help you in that regard, for sure. And he's younger, so yeah, that's an interesting discussion point for later on, most definitely. The next couple of guys we can kind of maybe breeze through a bit. Dalton Varsho, 12th, finished 64th overall, 222, 2016, won't be catcher eligible anymore. Any thoughts on Dalton? Like, I've almost crossed him off my list, but he's going much later in drafts now too. But yeah, I mean, I'm just not interested really.
He's still relevant. The power speed's there, but it's more of like a mid-late outfield type. And certainly he's only on this list because he was catcher eligible. That's why he was the 12th, quote unquote, 12th ranked outfielder entering the season. He was really the 2nd ranked catcher.
All right. We got Jazz Chisholm, the junior. I was going to say the 3rd. 13th outfielder off the board. Finished 54th, though, and that is mainly because he missed so much time. Still hit 258, 52, 19 homers, 22 stolen bases in 97 games. It's always the conversation here every single season with Jazz. If only he could play a full season. But on the bright side, even in his partial time, it's amazing. And you can also count replacement value with Jazz based on, you might not get the steals, obviously, but everything else you could pretty much do. So what's your thoughts on Jazz? Because every time it's like, okay, he's going to be hurt, I shouldn't draft him. But if you start getting creative with your drafts, he becomes very interesting again for the whole what if purpose.
I mean, it's going to be the same conversation next year.
Yep. Same exact freak injury this year too. That was the whole, like, don't play the outfield because he's going to get hurt. Boom, plays the outfield and gets hurt.
Yeah. There's a handful of players in MLB that can go 40-40. Jazz is one of them. It's just what's your risk tolerance? He's never played a full season. Has never had more than 507 plate appearances, and he's 26. He's not super young anymore. So I don't know. It can be same conversation.
Yep, same thing, different day. Just risk tolerance and building your team. How do you like it? Luis Robert. Now, this is the fun one we've been waiting for this year, and it happened, kind of. 14th outfielder off the board, finished 9th overall. So this is kind of one of your guys. If you waited on him, you got some benefits here. He hit 264 with 38 homers, 20 steals, and played in 145 games. Previous career high was 98. He finally put a season together, and he kind of limped at times. Like he battled through an injury and played, but it wasn't like years past that were just annoying. He looked great, looked real good, and you got to pay for him this year. But what's your thoughts on Lou Bob?
Yeah, I mean, and this is probably my bias stepping in, but like I can't pay that price for him next year. Like I still think of him as a hobbled man, even though he's just 25 and coming off a 590 plate appearance season. Skills look great. He ran plenty. He was plenty successful. So that'll keep on going. One of the few bright spots for the White Sox last season. But it's probably someone who is probably being drafted earlier than I'm willing to take him baseline wise.
Yeah, 26.
Yeah, I don't think so.
It's funny.
Like I'd rather have Harris.
Well, he's the 10th outfielder off the board, and Harris is the 11th outfielder. It's a 14-pick gap from 10 to 11. There's a little, you can tell there's a window of maybe pitchers going off the board or something else in 15s right there. All right, the 15th off the board here, and this is one where if you're doing early drafts, you're seeing this name much later than you've seen in a long time, and this is why. ADP of 15, finished 53rd overall in the outfield, that is Cedric Mullins. He hit 233 with 15 homers and 19 steals in only 116 games. And folks, that was not all due to injury. And that is the concern with Cedric Mullins. So what's your thoughts on Ced, who it was fun for a couple of years. I don't know if we're going to see that anytime soon.
Yeah, another one of my fine early DC picks, who I think I took Mullins at the 3-4 turn back in August. Yeah, you'll gladly find out for me.
You took him at pick 46th. His ADP right now is 126. You definitely have you have the men at 46. The high is 173. You win, Mr. Ryan Bloomfield.
I don't know how to react to that other than just forge on
Crack
with the
open
show.
A high noon.
Yeah, drink some beers and come back. So that draft took place in early August, mid-August. Cedric Mullins in August hit 188, in September hit 198, and by the end of the season was not even playing against left-handed pitching. So like what you were saying, Bubba, in terms of like the lower plate appearances was a little bit due to injury with the groin. It was also like he was a platoon bat by the end of the year. Will that continue next year? I think Baltimore gives him another chance as an everyday player, but like I agree, like I'm not feeling good at all about having the min pick on Cedric Mullins at this point. It's probably not going to end well.
It's the good, the bad, and the ugly of these early drafts. Like
it's not starting well.
There's a lot of picks on the flip side of that, though. Where like I got him at such a value, and now they're going. So there's the good, the bad, and the ugly. You got one of the rougher ones.
I haven't come across those yet on my team, at least.
Well, it's to be fair. You had Braxton Garrett last year. You get Cedric Mullins this year. Maybe you'll have a renaissance because of this. Like you set them in on Garrett, and it worked out beautiful for a while. So we'll see. What happens. Trying to be optimistic for you.
Till it didn't.
All right, trying to help. Kyle Schwarber is the 16th outfielder off the board. Finished 15th overall, and it's honestly impressive to finish 15th overall while hitting a .197 with 0 stolen bases. Zero steals and a 1. So basically, you're getting nothing if not hurting your squad on 2 categories. But then he hits 47 bombs, 108 runs scored, and 104 RBIs. And the I'll just throw this out there for anybody that does play OBPs. He's an elite. He had a 343 OBP. But for us Roto guys, he crushed you in 2 categories. Like 197 average, that's tough to bounce back from unless you have a couple big boys out there. So what's your thoughts on Schwarber? Like I love him, but I just can't stomach knowing I'm drafting 2 holes out the gate.
And not only is it a 197 batting average, it's a 197 batting average over 720 plate appearances.
Good point.
I know batting average is based on at-bats. He walked a good amount. I don't have his at-bat total, but probably over 600. That is a ton of volume of a terrible batting average. So, like, was he even the 15th best outfielder? I have no idea. That's a valuation thing. It's always tough to to kind of peg those guys and value them when you've got 2 categories that are just so awful and 3 that are so elite. It's the always cop out thing. It's a roster construction thing, but you better have some elite batting average cushion before even thinking about Kyle Schwarber. The other just fascinating thing, where the hell did 10 steals come from in 2022 with Kyle Schwarber? He followed that up with 0 this year. He had 1 each of the 2 seasons before that 10 stolen base spike. So that's an outlier. That's an outlier.
Most definitely. He had 585 at bats out of those 700 something plate appearances.
It's a lot of.
Still a lot of at bats at $1.97.
Yep.
That's rough. We all love the Schwarbombs. I love tweeting Schwarbombs in all caps. It's fun to watch the guy. Great for baseball. Tough one to stomach in the fantasy world. Ask Guilds and Ben Tidd and other guys every week trying to set their deal. Gialdi in the chat right now, Schwarber is such a weird leadoff man. And it's the OBP skills and then drops bombs. It's just a weird, an OBP at 343 is beautiful for a leadoff man. That's what you want. But yeah, the no steals part of it and everything, it's just a weird dichotomy. But that fits the Phillies. It works, obviously. That's the thing. But it is weird. You have Schwarber up top, and then you have guys like Trey Turner behind him. So you have a guy just blocking him on the base paths, and that's the tough part, to say the least. So we'll see. All right, here's a fun one now. Adolis Garcia, 17th outfielder off the board, finished 8th at the outfield position. He hit 245 with 39 bombs. Only 9 steals, though. Steals were down, similar to Schwarber. What just happened there? But, 108 runs, 107 RBIs. Dude is getting better and better at the plate discipline each year. I love what we're seeing from Adolis. It's a beautiful thing, not to mention the postseason from the gods.
Yeah, absolutely. That's what we will remember. Fortunately, your game 5, he did not play, right? He was out.
I think he was out after game 2 or 3.
Yeah. He'll be remembered for that. I don't know if that will affect his 24 ADP. I tend to think we forget about that stuff.
I don't think it will. Let's just put it that way.
It's easy to watch a home run in the World Series and say, oh, his ADP is going to skyrocket, and then it doesn't. But honestly, there's not too many guys the last 3 seasons that have put up the steady production of Adolis Garcia. The 9 stolen bases is a concern, mostly because he was 9 for 10 on the base path. So this was a decision either by Adolis or the Rangers to just not run. And I know they had a great offense, and maybe it was just our offense is so good that we don't want you even risking it. But his success rates have been fantastic over the last 3 seasons. So I don't know. And he was hitting behind Semien and Seager. So it wasn't stay on base for those guys. He was, I don't know. I don't know what to think of that 9 stolen base total coming off of 25 the year before. No idea what to project there for 2024. And it's a huge difference in his value for next year.
I don't have all the Rangers steals stats in front of me, of course, but my only thing I could think of off the top of my head is Bruce Bochy. Change the managerial situation. Be my only guess. But I feel like the Rangers still ran. That's the thing. So it's a weird decision for Adolis, to say the least.
Let me pull up my I did just write a stolen base thing. Yep. That actually, I have a graph of team by team stolen base attempt.
There you go. You're welcome. I put that one on a T for you here.
Texas had a very slight increase in stolen base attempt rate as a team. However, 21 of 30 teams also had increases in stolen base attempt rate because of the new rules. Yep. Texas finished I'm just eyeballing it here on the graph, maybe 17th or 18th in baseball in terms of that increase from last year. So they ran a little bit more. It's just Adolis did not.
Interesting. So maybe he can bounce it back to even better things and then he becomes a better value. We'll see. At worst, power, an okay batting average, and those runs and RBIs are elite. He's going right behind Randy Rosarena again. I always picture the two of them together. It's a very similar skill set, I think, with a lot of volatility on both sides of the spectrum.
Well, they were together.
Yes, they were. Yes, they were. Go Cardinals. Go Cardinals. Great farm management there.
As we abandon all Cardinals listeners. Sorry, Matt Thompson.
Yep. Corbin Carroll, your NL Rookie of the Year, 18th outfielder off the board, finished 3rd at the position. So this is where you start to get. You had Adolis 8th overall, Corbin Carroll 3rd overall. the waiting game, or maybe your outfielder 2 or 3, this is where you struck gold. Corbin Carroll, rookie of the year for a reason. 285, 25 homers, 54 stolen bases, scored 116 runs, battled injuries at points in the year with a shoulder situation. Looked like he might end his season at times, then comes back and looks great. The dude's amazing. Absolutely amazing to watch out there. The sky's the limit, honestly, for me with this kid. And I think I don't have a lot else to say about him besides whoever took the chance. I was afraid to take the chance on him last year. I'll admit that full-heartedly. And now if you want to take a chance on him, he's got an ADP of 6. So have fun with that.
That's our drafting style, though. And we'll fully admit, like, we won't take these guys. I believe Carroll was, well, I believe his ADP is right there. 64. He was 64 ADP. Yep. Like, we're both willing to miss out on that year to our detriment sometimes, to have someone prove it to us. I don't have much to add with Carroll. The consistency of the stolen bases was fantastic. He had 8 steals or more in all but 1 month last season. His lowest stolen base total for in any given month was in May with 6. So the steals were consistently there. There was that shoulder issue like mid-late season. The power did suffer. He only had 4 home runs after August, but honestly, I think I'm just nitpicking at this point. The raw power, the hard contact was still there late in the season, so I'm not too worried about the shoulder. As Mr. Gialdi in the chat says, I need to live a little, play a little looser this year, and take some chances and live a little. I did that with Cody Bellinger last year, so don't.
Which worked. That was true. We gave you a lot of flack for Cody Bellinger. I think maybe Gialdi did actually. Now that you mentioned it, I think
that was a point. That was a pointed reply.
Oh, I know.
That was a pointed reply.
I wanted to highlight it for the listeners out there that there's a little tongue in cheek behind that one, which is a beautiful. I almost feel like I'm rubbing off on Bloomfield all of a sudden. Let's let the start run wild. This next one's fun. Teoscar Hernandez. 19th off the board, still finished 26, which I think is actually interesting to me because when he was down, he was really down. But then he had some good runs. Like if you look at his month-by-month splits, it's almost like in every other month the power was there. The average was skeptical. He finished the season, though, when you look at the board here, 258, 26, and 7, which was great. Even Mr. Roger Bloomfield asked any thoughts on Teoscar, so here you go. This is why I was waiting on that one. What are your thoughts on Teoscar? He's a guy that he keeps getting older, which is a concern. I know like Seattle's even like not even that interested in him. He's going to be he has the same birthday as me. Wow, except he's 9 years younger, 31 years old. But it's tough. He's getting older, and the production's kind of like shaky. So, what's your thoughts on Teoscar?
Yeah, I mean Seattle isn't the best place to hit, so there is that. And I believe Seattle declined to offer Teoscar the not the player option, whatever the hell it's called.
The qualifying offer.
Qualifying offer. Thank you. Yep. So Teoscar will be playing elsewhere next season, which is probably a good thing. I'm not too worried. Like, are we going to see 2021 again? Probably not, where Teoscar hit 296, 12 steals, 32 homers. But I think he can get close. I think this is still a 30 homer bat. He's still running, and he'll be 31 next year. So watch the landing spot. I do worry about just like multiple oblique injuries the last few seasons that he's kind of tried to play through and hasn't totally worked out. If he can get that settled out, I think there's some value going at probably a pretty palatable ADP.
Yep, I think there is. I think that was my cue to tell you his ADP. I got 162. That's
I don't have it up. I still have the 1981 awards voting baseball reference tab.
I have it all here for a reason. 162. He's going behind Soler, right in front of Chas McCormick and Riley Green. That's an interesting discussion, honestly.
Yeah, I could live with a 10th round. 10th round Teoscar.
That is a very interesting discussion point that we will definitely have down the road. Tommy Edman was the 20th off the board, finished 50th in the outfield. We talked about him in other positions. So we're going to jump to Eloy Jimenez. This is a name I've already seen discussions on Twitter about because no one can quit Eloy, apparently. This is just every year we look at, the talent, but he's hurt. This is a discussion every single season with Eloy Jimenez. 21st outfielder off the board, finished 65th because of said injuries and other things. Hit 272 with only 18 home runs, 50 RBIs, 64 runs, or 64 RBIs, 50 runs scored. And once again, for the 5th straight season, 0 stolen bases. So what's your thoughts on Eloy, who he's just off my board?
Yeah, no career steals. It's pretty bad. Utility only next year too.
That's true.
He's on our outfield list, but only played 14 games in right field, 105 DH. So that pushes Eloy even further. Like it's tough to have a. I mean, granted, he'll be hurt, so he won't clog your utility spot. The big thing with Eloy, the ground ball rate, man. This is not someone who should be hitting ground balls. 53% ground ball rate in 23, 50% ground ball rate in 2022. Given the lack of speed, given the power that he still does have, injuries aside, we need a change in approach from Eloy. Like he should not be hitting 50% ground balls. And so you're just banking on like all this stuff to happen. And the name value for whatever reason is still so high that I'll probably be off of him.
Yep, I'm with you. George Springer, this is interesting. 22nd on the board, only finished 23rd. I expected higher considering he was 2020. 258, 21 homers, 20 steals. I guess, 87 runs, 72 RBIs. You maybe want a little bit more. But the 2020, first time in his career, he played 154 games, the most of his career since 2016. Like, these are all things that are big to me considering Springer's a guy that we expect to be hurt and do this and that. He ran, he stayed healthy. On a Blue Jays offense that disappointed for the most part, but at the same time, we could see bouncing back in 2024, and no one would really be shocked. The dimensions, whatever. But Springer finished 23rd. I guess it's great because you drafted him as a 22nd outfielder, but I expected more with that overall stat line.
Yeah, if you would have told me before the season Springer would have 681 plate appearances, like, would you have said top 10 outfielder?
Probably that 15th at worst, but yeah, top 10s. I wouldn't have argued it. I'll tell you that much.
Yeah. Just atop that lineup. And
top the lineup, if anything. That's just tremendous.
23rd is bad. And I just wonder, like, was that a black swan season to just not get hurt and have 680 plate appearances? You're also banking on a guy who's 33 to have a career high stolen base repeat. I don't know. Like that's one of the weirder seasons that I've seen. The way Springer played out all the time, went 2020, yet still finished outside the top 20.
Yeah, very, very odd overall finish spot there. So I'm intrigued. I'll still be intrigued later on, but yeah, it could be maybe expect more like 13 steals in the future, maybe not 20. That's a fluky situation. We talk about these guys that when the stolen bases go up, went backwards. He at least took advantage of it. It sounds like. I'll say that much. So that's a plus. But and the health, that was, like I said, the first time since 2016 we saw that. So a couple of things to keep in mind there. Starling Marte, 23rd off the board, finished 114th, injured off and on the entire season. Don't have a ton to say about him. I've always loved Starling Marte because he's boring and usually pretty good, but this past year was a tough one to stomach if you went on the limb for him.
And this is a type of player I always struggle with because I do draft like based on track record and like positive regression back to someone's baseline. There's that angle with Starling Marte. There's also the angle that he'll be 35 next year. He's had groin injuries. His value is solely tied to his legs. Like this could fall apart. And actually, I mean, it did fall apart in 2023. So will he get this back on the rails? Like these, not to get too like morbid here, but like these careers can end quickly if things don't get right for Marte. So I'm probably going to be off him and probably something I need to improve. Maybe take a young hitter in place of an aging Marte who, does have the track record, but given the injuries, given the age, seems unlikely to get back there.
ADP of 252 right now.
Yeah. The market agrees.
Yep.
That's just weird seeing Starling Marte that low.
Former first-round pick, perennial first-round pick, or at worst second round.
He had a stretch of $30 seasons, basically right on the cusp of $30 in 2015, 2016, 2018, 2019, 2020. He had a $40 season in 2021 when he ran wild with the A's. Even had $28 season in 2022. Like, that's what I mean with the track record. Like, give me another guy's track record outside the top 250. There's not many, if any, like Starling Marte, but yeah.
Yep. Very, very interesting. Gialdi feels like a paradigm shift in Bloomfield's philosophy on this pod. This is good. This is good stuff.
What's in that cup?
What's in that cup? Yeah, hot water.
Not
like
water.
an usual H2O. Okay, a few more to go here, and we'll wrap up this spot. Brian Reynolds, a Bloom Board favorite on this show. 24th outfielder off the board, finished 22nd overall. When you look at the stat line, 263, 262 last year, 24 and 12. Very similar to last season's production. Stolen bases went up. A guy that was quote unquote unlucky quite a bit at times. Seems to this is who he is for the most part, maybe with a little bit more to him, but I don't think there's too much to not like about Brian Reynolds. But what do you got on him? I know I think you're a fan of Reynolds. Last time I checked.
He was on a few homer to barrel lagging leaderboards throughout the season, and so I like him. I think if he's being taken again as outside the top 20 among outfielders, I'll totally be in. There are questions with the Pirates lineup. We talked about this last week with somebody on the Pirates.
Brian Hayes.
Yeah, probably. Yeah, Brian Hayes, apostrophe
yes.
Brian Hayes. That the Pirates lineup might not be terrible next year at the top if everyone stays healthy. I like Brian Reynolds as a second or third outfielder.
For sure. The next two we're going to kind of just skim through. Byron Buxton, thoughts?
Yeah. No. No.
Tyler O'Neill finished 159 at the position, hitting 231 with 9 homers and 5 steals. Thoughts?
Hey, I'm just glad I got the man on the Bloom board. I fixed a little bug in my code. Anyone who had an apostrophe was getting omitted.
So I think it might have been okay to omit Tyler O'Neill. But,
So why did I put in the extra work to get Tyler O'Neill on this Bloom
It's for
board?
future
I hope
boards. It's for future boards.
I guess. Are there any good pitchers with apostrophes in their names?
I don't know. Good point. So O'Neill, MJ Melendez will be outfield only next year. He finished 86th in the position. This is a rough one, 235, 16, and 6.
Yeah. GLD in the chat. Actually, I probably should have given some analysis on O'Neill. Change of scenery would do that man quite
Tremendous.
well. So yeah, keep an eye on that. But
yeah, I couldn't quit O'Neill on Fab Worlds, but then he dropped him again, so that was fun.
The ADP will certainly rise though if that happens.
Yep.
Yeah, I don't have too much to add on Melendez or even Jake McCarthy. He still got his 26 steals, but probably got most of those when he was not on your roster because he was sent down, I think, pretty early in 2023.
Yeah, he's sent down a few different times in 2023. I just want to check one thing real quick with McCarthy. Yeah, no, nothing to talk about there. What I did want to mention with Melendez, I was thinking of something else. I want to mention with Melendez is what's triggering about him. He's 24 years old, turns 25 in a couple weeks, actually. But you look at the quote-unquote peripheral stats, they're very good. Barrel rate's great. The hard hit rate's almost 50%. It's more of the quality of his, the results of his contact, I should say, that make it a little tricky at times. I think there's still something there. I don't know if I could jump aboard that train right now. I just wanted to highlight it. You got a dude, the fly ball's not bad. The home run of fly ball's horrific. Ballpark doesn't help with that. I think there's more there is all I'm trying to say. I just don't know if I'm willing to take that chance just yet. But I wouldn't give up on Melendez. I'd rather, if you're going to take a shot at any of these guys, Melendez out of this whole group we kind of went by would be a dude I'd still kind of keep an eye on, basically.
Which former catcher would you rather in 2024, Melendez or Dalton Varsho?
Probably Melendez, honestly. I think Melendez got much more of a batting average ceiling. Varsho's going 207. And Melendez is going 254. So I think I'd go Melendez, honestly. I probably won't have shares of either, but if I had to pick one of the two, I'd go Melendez. Taylor Ward, I'm out on him as well. Finished 85th in this position. Anything on Taylor Ward before we get to the highlight of the show, who everybody had to mention today?
Let's go there.
All right. The 30th outfielder off the board. Finished 11th at the position. And honestly, we were both on this. Maybe not to this level, but we were on board with when we analyzed him for the preview. We're like, this is who he is now. This is the guy. He's not the MVP guy, but this is who Christian Yelich is. He hit 278. This is actually a better average than I think we agreed to, but 19 homers, 28 steals. The steals kind of came up with the environment, but 106 runs, 76 RBIs. He was better than last year, but this is kind of who he is now. He's not this 40 home run guy that's going to hit 300. He's this guy that's going to be very, very productive at a phenomenal ADP, and it flourished last year. You have to pay a little bit more this year, but what's your thoughts on Christian Yelich, who I'm just a huge fan of? He is getting older. He's going to be 32 this year. but I still think there's a lot left in the tank.
Yeah. Had him in labor and tout. So, like, that was a big driver of my success there, Christian Yelich, until September came. I think we got a listener question about how he kind of limped to the finish, quite literally, which is a little concerning. But I agree. I do think this is who he is. We're not seeing the 2019, 2018 version ever again, but could he replicate something like this? I also think Yelich certainly benefited from the new rules for him to steal and be successful, get those 28 bags, and pretty much near the top, at or near the top of Milwaukee's lineup every day. This was a fantastic bounce back season for Mr. Yelich.
Yep, beautiful season indeed, and the ADP isn't crazy. He was around you should have got the ADP right there, 122 last year. He's going at like 71. Like, it's a jump, but it's not that crazy, all things considered.
His ADP. So I was just, while you were saying, I remember I put a tweet out on Yelich that I probably should have had prepared before. Sent this out back in February. I said, what am I missing with Christian Yelich? Entering 2022, Yelich had an ADP of 85. Entering the following year, 101. The following year, entering 2022, he had an ADP of 85. And that ADP went down to 126 entering the season, ended up at 122. So his ADP dropped 2 rounds. He has out-earned his draft slot in 2022. So he was the 80th. I'm presenting this horribly. He was the 85th guy off the board entering 2022. He out-earned that slot that season. The following year, he dropped to 126, which made no sense to me at the time.
Nope.
And obviously out-earned his 122 ADP this time. So maybe this is vodka in the glass. I don't know what that presentation just was. Hopefully someone gained something out of that.
I understood it. He outproduced his numbers, yet his ADP fell the following year, which makes no sense. And he still outproduced it again. I got you. I got you. I'll give you guys the cliff notes of it. But yeah, it's interesting to see. So I'm curious about the ADP of 72-ish to see how that plays out, because Steamer already got him as another 2020 season. So, which I think might be a little exciting, but I don't know if I can, completely support that, but we'll see. All right, a couple listener questions here, or one main listener question. It's got a few questions in it. I've got about 3 or so. Thomas M. Travato asks, what is the outlook for Yelich considering his back scare lately? Well, I just told you the projection is 2020, give or take, 24, 21 or something like that. Guess we got to hope he'll be healthy to start the season. Thoughts?
Yeah, it's just, we say almost every week that backs scare us. And like this has been a thing with Christian Yelich. And I think Christian Yelich, for all the praise that I just kind of heaped on him, it seems like Christian Yelich got very lucky to get to 632 plate appearances before the back kind of just gave out on him. Granted, he did return. And by the end of the season, Milwaukee, if you recall, Milwaukee had locked up the NL Central. They were like 8 games up heading into the final week. So no reason, and maybe the back injury was minor in September because they were so far ahead.
They voiced their thoughts that they flat out said we could play him at any time. We're resting him right now. They said that multiple times. And
he did even come back that final week with the lead just to get ready for the playoffs. So that wasn't just Milwaukee kind of blowing smoke. So I don't know. Maybe as we talk about this, I'm not as concerned about the back. That stuff can pop up pretty much at any time. So it's just something that's probably why the ADP is down, what do you say, in the 70s, something 72. Like that. Yeah. Is really just that risk of the back. But the fact that Yelich, and like I remember that last week, because like I said, he was on labor and tout, and I was watching those leagues. He can roll out of bed and hit. So like the performance, not concerned about it at all.
Yep, 100% with you on that. Thomas also asks, is the outfield so devoid of depth that dual eligible players should be drafted as outfielders, i.e. Betts and Steer? Wouldn't go that far, but probably.
That's actually the question that led me down that original rabbit hole of comparing positions and that sort of thing. No, I don't know. And like you said, Bubba, there's not even that many multi-position guys.
Not in the top 25. So. Like I can scroll some more here. You got 3 in the top 23, I guess. You got 4 in the top 35. That's Tommy Edmonds, so who cares? You got 5 in the top 53. That's Whit Merrifield, so who cares?
All right, I'll give you that.
6, let's say 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. You have 16 in the top 100. That's kind of like Lamont Wade, Ezekiel Duran, Chris Taylor, Matt Vierling. These are guys you're not really excited to go to.
Yeah, agreed.
So, yeah, you might be playing like the bets of the world in the outfield for sure. That's how that one rolls out of bed. Thomas's other question, with the change in stolen bases, what type of stats should we target from an outfielder, or is a team context more important?
So, yeah, this is a great question, and it kind of leads into kind of like a general recap of the position. I see a lot of, like, I feel like this is where you can build your well-rounded base of 5 category guys. Either in the first round with your J-Rods, your Kyle Tuckers. I'd still put Mookie Betts in that category, Tatis, even down to the more mid-round guys. Randy Arozarena, we talked about, Jazz Chisholm, like health depending, you get well-rounded numbers. I think George Springer, Brian Reynolds, Tommy Edman, like this is Christian Yelich. This is where you can get that balance and kind of and build from there. Whereas, as we talked about at the beginning of the show, like basically your first baseman, you're not going to get steals unless you grab Freddie Freeman or something, and ditto for like third base and catcher, a little bit of a lesser degree for third base. So I would try and get your 5 category guys in the outfield. There's seems to be a plethora of them. And again, we talked about like Yordan Alvarez, Mike Trout. That's the reason I'm probably avoiding those guys. I think you do need to get your bags here in the outfield. If you don't get them from a couple of your early outfielders, it's not impossible, but it's hard to kind of piece together stolen bases at those corner slots and catcher.
Yeah, and like another maybe Captain Obvious, Bubba, you're an idiot comments. It makes sense to maybe well round your team in this area because you have to take 5 of them to begin with. So it's more of a quantity over quantity situation, basically, at the position. But I'll ask you, well, I guess we'll have to do some drafts to maybe figure it out. And next episode, talking about 31 through 60 might help as well. But I remember last year in a lot of the drafts you were doing, you'd end up like, I got my outfielders already. I'm kind of screwed. But looking at this chart, you kind of wanted the early outfielders. So like, how screwed were you? Because in the end, like we always joke about, it's just a matter of how your roster comes together, not like when and where you got everything. So it just corners you, like you can't take an outfielder basically. But it might be the sound philosophy is what I'm trying to say.
Like in draft, it feels harder when you've locked up your 5 outfielders, like in your first 9 rounds. I think I did in one of the, and thinking Toutward or something like that. And it does, like, you want to leave some in draft, you want to leave some options open to not pigeonhole yourself. But at the end of the day, like, yeah, that seemed to be a pretty decent strategy because there were a good amount of well-rounded outfielders that returned pretty good value at the position.
Yep, for sure. Our friend Vlad Sedler says, I'd have to look, but this has to be the best first-round outfielder hit rate of the 21st century. He might be right, the way that one started out. You had a good comment to that, of course, about pretty much every position is dominated by the top couple of rounds.
Yeah, I mean, we basically repeated ourselves every position, it seemed like, saying the top 5 or 6, like all but one guy usually return that value. So I don't know if that's just a one-off or just the market is getting so much smarter, maybe both. That's been a consistent trend. It'll be interesting to see, I guess, in 2 weeks when we do pitchers, how that turned out for starting pitchers. I know it probably did for relievers. I don't know about starters.
For relievers for sure. Billy Hayes just says Yelich, man. So yeah, he got the job done. Yep. And last but not least here, our good buddy Ben Tidd. Because average can fluctuate so much year to year, isn't Soto just Mookie Betts? Soto can put up monster run totals himself. And I'm saying this because I think Mookie's ADP so far is about a round higher than Soto's. I understand what Ben is saying here. I guess it's a stolen base thing, but they're right next to their stolen bases. So I don't think he's far off, honestly.
No, and I should have had this kind of ready. Batting average is such a variable category that the difference between Soto and Betts last year, outside of like 4 home runs, 2 steals, it's not much, was the 30
runs scored.
Well, yeah, 30 runs scored. I was going to say 30 points in batting average. Soto very well may be on the damn Dodgers next year, so who knows? But the variance in batting average is really what set Betts apart from Soto. But like 35 points or whatever in batting average, it sounds like a lot. It's really not. Like when you boil that down to the actual number of hits, like in a month, it's 2 or 3 hits per month. That is a difference in like 30 points in batting average.
It's Soto's April.
It's Soto's April.
And so really.
Like sorry, no, I thought you said September. It's Soto's September.
Sorry. Yeah, he had the bad finish, not the bad start.
Yeah. No, he had the
I'm saying if he produces in April like he normally does, that's Soto's April. That's what I meant.
Gotcha. That we're both confusing each other, or I'm just confusing myself, I think, at this point. But no, I like it. It might not even be a poor man's comp. I mean, Betts and Soto, I bet if you look at the skills, like
very
probably not that far apart.
And Soto's got the age advantage on him, so that's good as well. You know, Betts you're spinning around to pick 5, give or take. Soto around 16, so doesn't suck. It's a good point.
Yeah, something to consider in KDS if you think those guys are similar. Go to the back end
or in your auctions, everybody. What are we doing in auctions?
Awesome episode for anyone who has made it this far in this podcast. I'm sure you have already listened to Bench with Bubba this week with Lucas Beery, who won the overall auction championship. That was a good one, man. I'm fired up to do some auctions now.
Appreciate it. It's going to be auction season before we know it, draft season before we know it, and Outfield Review Part 2 before you know it, aka next Tuesday night. So any final thoughts before we head on out tonight and get ready to bring it back next week? And it's Turkey Day next week, so we might only have one. We're trying to figure out how to do 2, but we're trying not to tick off the family too. So we might only have one next week.
We've got Tuesday for sure. We'll wrap up Outfield, and we'll figure something out after that.
All right, so that'll do it, folks. Another episode of Bubba and the Bloom in the books. We'll be back together, like I said, next week. Check out Ryan on Twitter at RyanBHQ, the podcast at Bubba Bloom Pod. I'm at BD Entrick, and Gialdi sends us off with, I hope to see you guys in the DC Gladiator streets over the holidays. You probably will. Hate to break it to you. I'll be there at least. But that'll do it, folks. Bubba and the Bloom, episode 84 in the books. Catch you all next time.